Have you ever wondered if there's something you could say, just a few simple words that would make you instantly unmanipulatable? Well, there is. I've spent the last 20 years researching self-worth and narcissistic relationships. As a coach, author, and survivor myself, I teach simple systems to help empower you in any situation. Whether you're dealing with a narcissistic boss, a manipulative relative, or you're simply just trying to hold your own in everyday conversations, in this video, I'll show you a conversation hack that you can use in real time to protect your power, the hidden ways language makes us vulnerable to manipulation without even realizing it, and the one mistake people make in dialogue that leaves them wide open to emotional exploitation. First, let's define manipulation. It's a dishonest form of social influence used at the expense of others to achieve an agenda. In conversation, it shows up as deceit, often subtle and underhanded, used to influence you for someone else's personal gain. The people most likely to manipulate you through conversation are often the ones closest to you, or those with the most social influence over you. Family members, close friends, romantic partners, or respected figures like bosses or community leaders. They've earned your trust. They know your vulnerabilities, your fears, your desires, which gives them emotional leverage and social capital, especially in dialogue. Manipulation can take many forms, but here we're focusing on the darker, more toxic kind that we see from narcissists. Because if you can make yourself unmanipulatable to them in conversation, everyone else will feel simple by comparison. There are a few key things to understand. 1, narcissists lie or distort reality to gain at your expense. And 2, they weaponize social influence through their tone, their phrasing, and the way they position a question. By the way, if you're wondering how to assess the level of risk you're dealing with, I've created a free narcissist protection checklist to help. You can grab it in the description below. So what are they after? Narcissistic supply, your time, attention, and energy. They feed off praise, sympathy, emotional reactions, and control over others to prop up their ego. And they get that supply by targeting your social fears, deeply ingrained psychological triggers that evolved to keep us connected to the group. Historically, being rejected or ostracized meant danger, so we developed these fears as survival mechanisms. Today, they make us easy targets, especially if we're unaware. What makes this even more complicated is that those fears are tied directly to empathy. We care about other people's feelings. We care about our impact. But narcissists don't. They don't avoid those fears. They exploit them. They press on 4 main psychological triggers in conversation: guilt, our empathetic aversion to causing harm; fear, our drive to avoid failure or loss; disapproval, our need to be accepted; and control, our discomfort with uncertainty or chaos. By pushing these buttons, they turn our empathy into a tool they can use. To become unmanipulatable in conversation, you have to learn to spot these triggers and pause before reacting. This doesn't mean losing your empathy. It means refusing to let it be used against you. So how do you actually protect yourself in a conversation? By drawing a clear line that separates you from someone else. A line that keeps you in and others out. We call these boundaries, but most people misunderstand the core concept. Because of that, they make one huge mistake that leaves them wide open to manipulation. In conversation, boundaries are incredibly simple. Some responses act like dead ends. Others act like on-ramps. A dead end signals that the conversation stops here. It doesn't explain, it doesn't apologize, it doesn't soften. It's clear, calm, and final. There's nowhere else for the other person to go. But when you're uncomfortable holding that line, you tend to build an on-ramp. You add a softener, something like, "I'm sorry," or "I think," or "I might," or "I hope that's okay." It sounds polite, but what it really does is give the other person a way back in. You're still technically setting a boundary, but you're also signaling that you feel bad about it, that you might change your mind, or that the line isn't solid. And narcissists are tuned to that. They're listening for hesitation, because hesitation tells them that you're still usable, that you can still be guilted or persuaded or pushed. It's not an accident, it's a test, and they're hoping that you fail it. And that's why this idea of dead end matters. Think about driving. When you see a dead end sign, do you take it personal? Do you think the road is being rude? Of Of course not. It means that there's no way through, so you turn around. That's what reasonable people do. They respect the limit. They adjust. They move on. But a narcissist, they don't move on. They escalate. They will guilt you or question your tone or act confused or accuse you of being rude, cold, or selfish. They say whatever they think might pressure you into opening that conversation back up. Because when you block access, they go straight for your emotional pressure points: guilt, fear, disapproval, and uncertainty. And that's the moment it becomes clear. When the boundary holds, the mask slips, and you finally see exactly who and what you're dealing with. One of the most common mistakes in conversation is offering an on-ramp, hoping the other person will read the room and choose to not take it. So you soften your words or you explain and you try to make it easier for them to accept your no. Not because you're weak, but because you're still hoping they'll be reasonable. But here's the problem. When you over-explain, you're not reinforcing your boundary, you're creating access. And for manipulators, that's supply. Every extra word tells them where to merge back in, where you're unsure or where the pressure might work. So instead of ending the interaction, you're unintentionally signaling that you're still open to negotiation, and they'll use that. This is why your boundary can't depend on someone else understanding you or respecting you or backing off. Your boundary lives in how you respond. I see this all the time with my clients. They'll ask something a little bit polarizing or prying, like my opinion on politics or religion or whatever's dominating the headlines that day. And then they'll say, oh, I don't want to cross your boundaries. And I always say the same thing. You can't cross my boundaries even if you wanted to, because I don't hold my boundaries by controlling what someone else says. I hold them by deciding what I'll respond to, what I'll share, where I stop. My internal rule is simple. Keep it true, keep it kind, and say what's necessary and no more. And that's how you become unmanipulatable in conversation, not by policing other people's words, but by taking full ownership of your own. That's what makes this conversation hack so powerful. You're not trying to manage them. You're managing your own behavior. You're choosing to speak in a way that has structure, it has edges, and that has limits. And when you stop building on-ramps, manipulators stop moving forward. That's what makes you unmanipulatable. So let's look at some real-life examples of how this conversation hack plays out. Someone tries to pull you into their personal drama by asking for advice, but you really feel like they're not looking for advice. They're looking for an ally or someone to take a side. And instead of getting pulled in, what you calmly say is, what do you think you should do? It's a dead end disguised as curiosity. No judgment, no position, and nowhere else for the conversation to go. Or someone might bring up a polarizing topic and clearly wants you to take a stand. And instead of engaging, you just say, I do my best to stay neutral. It's ambiguous on purpose. You haven't agreed, you haven't disagreed, and you haven't given them anything to push against. And when someone tries to drag you into a conflict with a third party, maybe a mutual friend or a family member, you don't take the bait. You just say, I think you should talk to them about that. It's a quiet refusal to triangulate, and it closes the door on being used as a middleman. These examples are just quick scenarios to show you what it looks like in real life, but remember, this isn't just a one and done conversation. It's every conversation, every single interaction with someone close to you, even when they're not a manipulator. It's a moment where you have to constantly choose to stay solid in what you say and what you share. And when you're starting out, this takes real mental and emotional strength. The hardest conversations are the ones where you've historically had no boundaries, or where you've always over-explained or over-softened or tried to keep the peace. And shifting in those moments doesn't mean you've failed. It just means you're learning, and yes, it's hard and it's supposed to be hard. But the energy that you spend choosing your words carefully, resisting that urge to soften or explain, will feel draining at first, but it also builds strength. When I was first learning this, I stumbled, I was awkward, I wanted boundaries to feel graceful and easy, and I thought that if I just said it once, the right way, it would be done. That expectation set me up for disappointment after disappointment. So please know, this is a long game. It will always take focus and stamina to hold your shape in a conversation where someone is trying to test your limits. You're making yourself into someone who doesn't absorb the pressure, who doesn't give away power just to keep things smooth. You're going to get it wrong sometimes. You'll say too much. You'll give on-ramps. You'll soften something that didn't need softening. You'll walk away from a conversation wishing you could do it over. And that's normal. But the more you choose clarity over comfort, the more you commit to saying only what's true, kind, necessary, friendly, whatever, however you need to frame that for yourself, the easier it gets. And if you keep doing this, eventually something strange happens. The manipulators disappear. Not because they changed, but because you changed. You made yourself unexploitable. And when a new narcissist shows up, you'll see them coming from a mile away and they won't get anywhere near you. When you're faced with manipulation in dialogue, use the unmanipulatable method. This 3-step process helps you shift from offering conversational on-ramps, those softeners, explanations, and subtle openings for pressure, into speaking with the clarity of a dead end. Step 1, recognize the emotional trigger that's being activated in the conversation. Are they pressing on guilt, fear, disapproval, uncertainty? Once you see that pattern, you can stop reacting to it automatically. Step 2, check in with yourself. Ask, what do I actually think about this? What do I want to say? What don't I want to say? This reconnects you with your truth, so your words come from intention, not pressure. Step 3 is to protect that truth by speaking with finality, not over-explaining, not managing their feelings, just a simple, calm, dead end, one that doesn't open the door again once it's been closed. If you're not sure where to start, write it out. Type the sentence the way you want to say it, with all those softeners. I'm sorry, or I just think, or I really need, and then go back and delete or cross out every on-ramp. What's left is going to feel uncomfortable and it's going to feel stark, and that's okay. As you practice this, notice how that feels. Holding your shape might feel new. If you're giving too much or cushioning your truth, you'll feel it. It'll feel like tension or resentment or regret. You're not trying to manage their behavior. You're choosing your own response. The goal is to be unmanipulatable. Reasonable people will respect that. Manipulators will be repelled. Thanks so much for watching. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this video right here on the screen, so go ahead and give that one a click. It dives deeper into spotting narcissists, avoiding their traps, and building boundaries that actually work. Don't miss it. It's your next step toward the life you deserve. I'll see you over there. Okay,